Hey everyone, and welcome back to our video devotions where I'm answering some of your questions. This week, somebody asked, was being crucified on the cross back then their type of jail? Well, we're going to answer that in just a minute, but first, I asked you, what do you know about the cross? And here's what you had to say.
Jesus died on the cross.
God died on the cross for us.
Jesus went there to save us from our sins. That way we could go to heaven with him.
Thanks everyone. Well, we know a lot about Jesus' death and resurrection, but have you ever really thought about the crucifixion and what kind of punishment that was for Jesus? Well, let me read you part of the story out of Matthew chapter 27 that talks about when Jesus died on the cross. Here's what Matthew said. As they were going out, they found a Cyrenian man named Simon, and they forced him to carry his cross. When they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of the skull, they gave him wine, mixed it with gall to drink, but when he tasted it, he refused to drink it. After crucifying him, they divided his clothes by casting lots. Then they sat down and were guarding him there. Above his head, they put up the charge against him in writing, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." Then 2 criminals were crucified with him, one on the right and one on the left. And those who passed by were yelling insults at him, shaking their heads and saying, "You who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." In the same way, the chief priests with the scribes and elders mocked him and said, "He saved others, but he cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down now from the cross, and we will believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God rescue him now, if he takes pleasure in him. For he said, 'I am the Son of God.'" In the same way, even the criminals who were crucified with him taunted him. And from noon until 3 in the afternoon, darkness came over the whole land. About 3 in the afternoon, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, "Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani?" That is, my God, why have you abandoned me?" And when some of those standing there heard this, they said, "He's calling for Elijah." Immediately, one of them ran and got a sponge, filled it with sour wine, put it on a stick, and offered him a drink. But the rest said, "Let's see if Elijah comes to save him." But Jesus cried out again with a loud voice and gave up his spirit. Suddenly, the curtain of the sanctuary was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth quaked and the rocks were split. And that's the moment when Jesus died on the cross. But why was Jesus crucified? What had Jesus really done? And we know the answer was nothing. Jesus had done nothing wrong. All he had done was declare that he is God, which he is. He preached the truth to people all throughout the nation of Israel. He healed people, even when he did it on maybe days that the Pharisees said, "You shouldn't be doing that on the Sabbath." Jesus did it anyways because he knew he was doing the right thing. And ultimately, Jesus never did anything wrong. He did not deserve to be crucified. Why were people crucified? Well, people were crucified for really, really bad crimes. For instance, if somebody killed somebody else, well, they would be crucified. It'd be like today, people are executed when they have killed somebody else. Sometimes they are killed themselves. Well, that's what the crucifixion was for. It wasn't really a type of jail. It didn't really replace jail because they still had prisons back then as well. But it was their form of execution. And at first, it was really just slaves, lower class people who had committed some really, really bad crimes. They would crucify them for a couple of reasons to say, hey, this is the consequences for your really, really bad actions, but also to show other people, if you do this, you will be just like them and you will be crucified on a cross. And nobody wanted that to happen because it was really the worst way to die. The Romans tortured people on the cross, and it was not a fun way to go. So why was Jesus crucified? Well, again, the answer is for nothing. He did nothing. There was nothing wrong that Jesus did, but the people were so upset with what he was preaching and what he was saying, that was their answer, to go and crucify him so that he would be quiet, stop talking about God, stop claiming to be God, and they just wanted to get back to their normal lives. But Jesus went to the cross, and he went through all of that pain, knowing it was the worst way to die for you. He did it for me. He did it for all of us because Jesus loved us. He loved us so much that he went to the cross to die for our sins so that we could be forgiven and we could be saved. Jesus went through all the pain, all the torture, all the beatings, the blood that was pouring out, all of these horrible things that went on with the crucifixion. Jesus endured it all so that we could be saved. He took that punishment so that we don't have to. Because think about it. We deserve to die for our sin. I know I wouldn't want to go through a crucifixion. I don't know about you, but that would be a horrible thing to have to go through. But Jesus took it for us. He said, hey, I'm going to die on the cross so that you don't have to pay the penalty for sin. And in all reality, the penalty we would have to pay is much worse than dying on a cross. It would be eternity spent in hell away from God. And Jesus died so that we don't have to endure that. But here's the good news. Jesus died, but he rose again. 3 days later, Jesus rose from the grave. He conquered sin. He conquered death. He conquered the grave so that we could be saved. And if you don't know Jesus, I would love to have a chance to sit down and talk more with you about how you can be saved because Jesus died on the cross just for you.